Hello. Well, I'm hammering at these dove heads, and they are giving me a hard time. The main thing wrong with a big block Ford dove head is the exhaust, and it has everything wrong when it comes to performance. The floor empties too low, the bowl is shallow, and the guide's in the way, and there's not a lot of room for the air to get out. Now, most guys move up to a different size exhaust valve. I'm leaving the stock valves in these heads, so keep that in mind. A bigger exhaust valve would definitely help, in my opinion. But most guys go with the Cobra Jet valves. Um, but anyway, I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. One of the other things that's wrong with the 460 uh, exhaust is mostly, like I said, the bowls, and they're out of shape. They have a low spot in the back, and I'm going to show you these, but I've already taken care of a lot of these areas, and it's going to be hard for you to see where I'm talking about. So I'll try to point it out, guys. I hope you can get an idea here. But this is what I'm working on. Now, I do want to point this out. I wasn't going to mention this because I should do a separate video on this, but I lose my train of thought too easy. I guess always think about somebody trying to do a pair of heads and then they don't quite know what to do sometimes. But anyway, the combustion chamber goes way up on these heads here by the exhaust valve. So what I did, I angled this back, and I'm actually going to cut this down more here. I don't know if you can still see, it goes up. So that means that valve has to lift so high for that air to be able to move. So depending how much performance you're trying to get out of these heads, I'm definitely cutting this down more and going to angle this in more. But I have other things that are more crucial to do than that at the minute, like the bowls. Now you can see this is one that I'm pretty content with. I've got it where it's pretty well rounded in now, and I've gone over these several times, fellas. Believe it or not, they still don't look pretty, but you're not going to make these heads pretty, in my opinion. So, and now keep in mind now, I cut the guide down in these. So the guide would normally be so high, right? So that's how much room you'd have for the air to go out. But I got rid of that. So all I'm going to have to worry about is a little bit of the valve, the being that big around the stem, that much. So imagine the guide with the valve in there, and you would say that that's not a lot of room. Now imagine the guide around this valve. So I've taken quite a bit out. That gives that air a lot more chance to get out of that. So, and remember, the guide comes all the way up to here. So I've deepened the bowls up best I can, and I've actually had these on the borderline. If I go any further trying to cut these down or back more where it goes out the port, then I'd be in trouble because I'll go through. And I can promise you that because I can tell how the metal has changed up. But what you want to do, you want to try to get the bowls as rounded in as possible, regardless of any kind of performance you're trying to give these heads. Even though for fuel economy, if you did a good bowl job on these and you have a motorhome, well, I would be very surprised if you didn't pick up at least 2 or 3 miles to the gallon. That's just a stab at it. Don't hold me to that. But a good valve job and opening the exhaust up on these heads would be a big difference. So I'm going to try to show you guys. They are not pretty, even if you do all the work. And like I said, I cut everything back on the roof here, and I've done just about all I could do on the exhaust side, pushing the envelope, because I don't want to have all these hours in these heads and then go through just trying to squeeze another couple CFM. I've seen other performance jobs done to these heads before, and the guys just do the standard thing. They just cut back around the guide, and I've seen the motors where they've run into the 10s. So I've gone a step further, and well, that's what I do. I put my own spin. I put the Grover charm on these things, and what that always winds up doing is costing me a lot of time, because I can't leave well enough alone. My friend, he'll stop by here once in a while, and I'll show him something I'm doing, and I've told the story before, and he'll say, "Cuz, them heads were done last month, in my opinion, the way you had them before." And he's always given me a lot of kind of a pat on the back with that, like basically saying they were good enough before that. So anyway, this might give you an idea here. That's one of the low spots. So I try to taper all this in, and then it gets thicker in here. Now a lot of guys would say leave this, cut this back and leave it thick in here, because it gives the air more tendency to go out this way. But these are so shallow, I'm trying to give this as much room as possible for that air to come in, and where it has time to kind of sweep itself out. That's my theory on that. I always think a deep bowl is a good bowl, in my opinion. But I thought I'd show you guys this. I do have to get back to work on this here, but I've had a few questions about the 460 heads, and there's not a lot of guys showing too much out there with these heads. But I will say this, guys, if you try to cut back around the guide and you never want to try to take that out, because you'll be in some serious trouble. That's hollow, water in there. So I've done everything I could do to these right as of now. So anybody thinking, wow, why didn't they cut that back more in there? That's the shape you wind up with. And if you notice, you see the dark area? Well, that's where the metal's starting to change. And like I said, if I keep going here, I'm going to go through. So that's what I wanted to point out. I don't want guys trying to port heads and wind up with a head they can't use, because they tried to squeeze more out of it than they can get. It's where you take the metal is more important than how much sometimes. And to me, what I did here is probably the most improvement that I'm going to get out of these heads. Another thing, I don't know if I mentioned it, ports are so big on a 460, but what I did do, where they're restricted in here, if you're going to have an open big exhaust port like this, then you might as well make the rest of it accommodate that big port. That's how I look at it. And there's really not a real logical reason that I see why Ford made these exhaust ports so big and then left it so cluttered in here. So Every time I look at these heads and look them over and try to talk about it, I get overwhelmed thinking, why did they design that like that? Whether it's going in a truck or it's not a performance thing, whether they had that in mind or not, how about just doing something a little bit better than what they did here? So that's my thinking on that, guys. So if anybody has any questions about the 460 heads, Dove, and all that, I'm far from an expert on that. But the things that I see, I will share with you. And if there's something I can help you out with, just drop me a little comment down there. And I'll try to answer. And I want to say, I keep stressing this every once in a while. I don't always see these comments. YouTube, for some reason, I don't know what goes on, but I just saw some comments that I had a year ago, and Jesse, if you see this, you're one of them, and he's one of our 460 buddies, and I always answer people when I can, and very rarely I miss a comment. I double check it. But I look back on there, and all the comments I believe that I had already answered were wiped out. That there was nothing there. So I don't know what. That's not me doing that, guys. I hope somebody don't look and say, "Hey, my comments going. Why did he do that?" That wasn't me. The only time that would happen is if I had somebody giving me a hard time, and then that does happen when I have some nonsense. But that's very rare. That's not something that happens to me very often. So I just want to let you guys know that, and ladies, I always say guys, but we have some performance girls on here. So anyway, with that, guys, I want to thank you, and always appreciate your interest in this. And like I said, if there's something I can help you out with, feel free to just drop me a little comment. So with that, I have to get back on these. This has taken more time than porting these heads, finessing this stuff in. I want to let you guys know that. Make sure if you start something like this here that you have the time to devote yourself to it, because it's very easy to get where you get, this gets monotonous pretty quick. I'll put it to you that way. It might look fun when you first start out doing this stuff, but it's something that after you're in there for a while, you start getting weary. I will tell you that. I think any head porter, I think, would agree with that. So anyway, thank you, everybody, and God bless you.